May 8, 1945, the stone corridors of the Reich Chancellery bunker echoed with the hollow sound of German General Wilhelm Keitel's leather boots as he descended the final staircase to his briefing room. The acrid smell of burning documents mixed with the metallic taste of defeat that hung heavy in the Berlin air, while distant Soviet artillery had fallen ominously silent just hours before Germany's unconditional surrender. In his trembling hands, Keitel clutched a manila folder containing Allied intelligence documents that would fundamentally shatter his understanding of the entire war. Decoded transcripts revealing that American cryptographers had been reading every German Enigma transmission since February 1942. The rhythmic clicking of a lone typewriter from an adjacent room provided a haunting soundtrack to this moment of devastating revelation, each mechanical keystroke echoing the thousands of German military secrets that had been systematically transcribed, analyzed, and exploited by Allied intelligence services for nearly 3 years of warfare. Those typewriter keys had been clicking with relentless precision in Allied intelligence centers across Britain and America throughout the war's middle years, their mechanical percussion marking each pivotal moment when another classified German military communication was transformed into decisive Allied tactical advantage. For Wehrmacht generals who had constructed their entire strategic framework upon the mathematical certainty of Enigma's cryptographic invulnerability, this discovery represented far more than conventional military defeat. It constituted an intellectual catastrophe that obliterated fundamental assumptions about German technological supremacy and American scientific capabilities that had guided Nazi strategic planning since the war's inception. To comprehend the seismic psychological impact of this cryptographic revelation, one must first understand the absolute confidence that German military leadership had systematically invested in their encryption systems throughout the war's early phases and continuing into its most critical middle years. The Enigma machine represented what German engineers considered the absolute pinnacle of 1930s cryptographic technology, a mechanical marvel engineered with characteristic Teutonic precision that generated over 150 trillion mathematically possible cipher combinations through its sophisticated arrangement of rotating electrical wheels, complex circuit pathways, and intricate plug-board connections that could be reconfigured daily according to predetermined patterns. German military cryptographers had performed exhaustive mathematical calculations conclusively demonstrating that even under theoretically optimal conditions, with unlimited computational resources and perfect analytical methodologies, successfully breaking a single day's worth of Enigma traffic would require several centuries of continuous mathematical analysis by teams of the world's most brilliant mathematicians working with mechanical precision. This seemingly impregnable mathematical security had systematically fostered a pervasive culture of operational transparency throughout the Wehrmacht's command structure, where detailed battle plans, precise troop dispositions, comprehensive supply schedules, strategic assessments of enemy capabilities, and even highly personal communications between field commanders flowed freely across radio networks spanning continental Europe, protected by what German military scientists considered an absolutely impenetrable fortress of mechanical sophistication and mathematical complexity that no enemy intelligence service could possibly compromise through any conceivable analytical method. The Enigma machine itself had evolved far beyond its practical cryptographic function into a potent symbol of German scientific achievement and industrial precision that embodied fundamental Nazi assumptions about Teutonic technological superiority over democratic chaos. Each individual unit, weighing precisely 26 pounds and resembling an exceptionally robust typewriter encased in carefully crafted oak and precision-machined steel, represented the culmination of decades of systematic cryptographic research, advanced mechanical engineering excellence, and the characteristically methodical German approach to solving complex technological problems through disciplined scientific investigation. Wehrmacht officers at every level of command responsibility carried their personal encryption machines with the same profound reverence that medieval Teutonic knights had historically reserved for their legendary Damascus steel swords, instruments of technological superiority that fundamentally separated civilized, scientifically advanced warfare from the chaotic barbarism of less technologically sophisticated adversaries who lacked access to such advanced mechanical systems. When German commanders transmitted critical operational orders to panzer divisions advancing across the seemingly endless Russian steppes, Kriegsmarine wolf packs prowling the dark waters of Atlantic shipping lanes, or Luftwaffe bomber squadrons preparing for strategic missions over British industrial centers, they conducted these vital communications with unshakable conviction that their messages remained absolutely shrouded in mathematical invincibility, that no enemy cryptographic service could possibly penetrate through any available analytical methodology or computational technique. American cryptographic capabilities, by deliberate and stark contrast, appeared almost comically primitive to comprehensive German intelligence assessments compiled throughout 1941 and continuing into the early critical months of 1942. Detailed reports systematically prepared by experienced Abwehr agents operating deep within American industrial and military establishments described a nation whose military communications infrastructure relied predominantly on outdated commercial telegraph systems, elementary diplomatic codes adapted from civilian applications, and basic alphabetic substitution ciphers that seemed more appropriate for routine business correspondence than the sophisticated operational requirements of modern mechanized warfare conducted across multiple global theaters simultaneously. The Reich's Security Main Office, after conducting systematic analysis of captured American communications equipment and conducting extensive interrogations of American prisoners of war, had reached definitive scientific conclusions that American cipher methodology lagged approximately 15 to 20 years behind current German cryptographic standards, representing a technological disparity that appeared to provide comprehensive scientific validation for broader Nazi ideological assumptions about inherent American intellectual inferiority, chronic industrial inadequacy, and the inevitable consequences of democratic social organization on scientific achievement and technological development. This technological confidence extended far beyond narrow cryptographic considerations into the fundamental doctrinal assumptions that systematically governed German military planning throughout the war's early period and continuing into its most critical phases. Wehrmacht strategic thinking operated upon the bedrock principle that superior military organization, innovative tactical methodologies, disciplined training regimens, and technologically advanced equipment would inevitably triumph over crude numerical advantages or raw industrial capacity, regardless of the specific operational theater or the particular strategic challenges presented by different enemy forces operating under various geographical and logistical constraints. The spectacular military successes systematically achieved during lightning blitzkrieg campaigns across Poland, France, Norway, Denmark, Yugoslavia, Greece, and throughout the initial phases of Operation Barbarossa had methodically reinforced this institutional belief system, creating a pervasive organizational mindset throughout the Wehrmacht's command structure that viewed German military science as inherently and permanently superior to anything that American industrial democracy, with its chaotic political processes, ethnic diversity, and undisciplined social structures, might conceivably produce through its fundamentally disorganized democratic institutions and decentralized decision-making processes. When senior German general staff officers gathered in their traditional oak-paneled planning rooms to develop comprehensive major operations across multiple theaters of global warfare, whether coordinating Field Marshal Rommel's ambitious desert campaigns throughout North Africa, planning systematic U-boat operations for the prolonged Battle of the Atlantic, or organizing the massive logistical requirements necessary for the Eastern Front's unprecedented military operations. They conducted their most sensitive strategic discussions with comfortable assurance that their vital communications remained completely invisible to enemy intelligence services, protected by cryptographic systems that represented what they considered the absolute pinnacle of human scientific achievement and technological sophistication. The stark historical reality, however, had been fundamentally and catastrophically different since that cold February morning in 1942, when American cryptographers working at the sprawling Bletchley Park facility achieved their first systematic breakthrough into German military communications networks. Located within a carefully converted Victorian estate approximately 50 miles northwest of London, diverse teams of British, American, Canadian, and Polish cryptographers had been working with methodical determination and systematic precision to completely dismantle German communication security through a remarkable combination of captured German encryption equipment obtained during early military operations, invaluable pre-war intelligence contributions systematically provided by Polish cryptographic services, and the revolutionary application of primitive electromechanical computing machines capable of processing thousands of complex encryption permutations per hour with mechanical precision that far exceeded any human analytical capabilities. By the crucial spring months of 1942, Allied cryptographic operations had systematically achieved an intelligence penetration of absolutely staggering proportions that completely defied German comprehension or strategic planning assumptions. American and British code-breaking teams were routinely deciphering an average of 4,000 individual German military messages every single day, providing Allied commanders with an unprecedented real-time strategic window into comprehensive Wehrmacht planning processes, detailed operational capabilities, tactical assessments, logistical challenges, and high-level strategic decision-making that extended seamlessly from field-level tactical operations to the most sensitive communications exchanged between Hitler's headquarters and his theater commanders operating across multiple global fronts simultaneously. This extraordinary intelligence advantage encompassed virtually every conceivable aspect of German military operations across all active theaters of warfare. Comprehensive assessments of Allied industrial capacity and military capabilities systematically prepared by German intelligence services, precise scheduling information for troop movements and equipment transfers between different operational fronts, detailed reports comprehensively documenting critical supply shortages significantly affecting combat effectiveness, strategic disagreements between political leadership and field commanders, and even highly personal communications that revealed the psychological state and fluctuating morale levels of key German military leaders throughout the Wehrmacht's command hierarchy. The comprehensive scope of this cryptographic penetration extended far beyond immediate tactical intelligence into strategic planning considerations that systematically shaped the entire course of Allied military operations across all theaters of global conflict. Allied intelligence analysts were systematically reading comprehensive German evaluations of American industrial production capabilities, detailed Luftwaffe technical assessments of Allied aircraft performance characteristics and defensive systems, Wehrmacht logistical reports methodically outlining ammunition shortages and critical fuel problems plaguing German forces across the Mediterranean, Eastern and Western European theaters, and high-level strategic communications that systematically revealed German assessments of Soviet military capabilities and long-term strategic intentions throughout the massive Eastern Front operations, most remarkably and ultimately psychologically devastating for German commanders when they eventually discovered the full extent of this systematic penetration. Allied intelligence services frequently received critical German operational orders before those identical orders reached their intended recipients operating in various field commands, as radio transmission delays caused by atmospheric interference and the vast geographical distances involved in Coordinating global military operations meant that intercepted messages often arrived at Bletchley, parked several hours ahead of German field commanders who were expecting to receive those critical operational communications through normal Wehrmacht communication channels. This unprecedented intelligence advantage manifested itself in countless operational ways that German officers initially attributed to remarkable coincidence: exceptionally superior Allied reconnaissance capabilities, extraordinary tactical brilliance consistently demonstrated by enemy commanders, or simply the inevitable consequences of conducting prolonged warfare across multiple theaters simultaneously against numerically superior adversaries with substantial industrial advantages. When carefully planned U-boat Wolfpack operations systematically discovered empty Atlantic shipping lanes where German naval intelligence reports had confidently indicated rich convoy traffic based on systematic analysis of British shipping schedules and historical patterns, German Kriegsmarine commanders consistently attributed these operational failures to faulty reconnaissance data or exceptionally efficient British convoy routing procedures, rather than seriously considering the disturbing possibility that their most sensitive communications had been systematically compromised by enemy cryptographic services. When meticulously planned Luftwaffe bombing raids repeatedly encountered unexpectedly concentrated anti-aircraft defenses at previously undefended industrial targets throughout Britain, German Air Force planners systematically attributed this phenomenon to remarkably efficient British civil defense organization and rapid defensive redeployment capabilities rather than acknowledging the possibility of advanced strategic warning derived from systematically decoded German attack orders transmitted days before actual operations commenced through standard Wehrmacht communication procedures. The typewriter keys at Allied intelligence centers continued their relentless mechanical symphony throughout 1942, 1943, and continuing into 1944, each individual keystroke representing another classified German military secret systematically transcribed from intercepted radio transmissions, each successfully decoded message providing another crucial tactical or strategic advantage that gradually accumulated into overwhelming operational superiority across every active theater of the expanding global conflict. German generals planning the elaborate defensive preparations for Fortress Europe remained completely unaware that their most carefully guarded operational details, including precise troop dispositions, defensive strongpoint locations, supply depot coordinates, and comprehensive contingency withdrawal plans, were being systematically transmitted directly to Allied planning rooms within hours of their original transmission, providing Allied invasion planners with comprehensive intelligence that fundamentally transformed D-Day from a risky amphibious gamble into a carefully orchestrated military operation, conducted with complete knowledge of German defensive capabilities, limitations, and strategic reserves. German expectations regarding American cryptographic capabilities had been systematically shaped by comprehensive pre-war intelligence, assessments that consistently portrayed American military science as fundamentally inferior to established European technological standards and proven scientific methodologies. Nazi ideological frameworks had repeatedly emphasized American cultural and intellectual degeneracy as inevitable consequences of democratic social organization, ethnic diversity, capitalist materialism, and the complete absence of disciplined state direction in scientific research and systematic educational development. German military theorists, drawing extensively upon these ideological assumptions and supported by carefully selected intelligence reports that systematically confirmed their existing preconceptions, had reached definitive conclusions that a nation, constructed upon the chaotic foundations of capitalist materialism and democratic political processes, could never achieve the disciplined scientific excellence, systematic organizational efficiency, and sustained technological innovation required for advanced cryptographic warfare against the methodical German scientific establishment and its systematic approach to technological development. These comprehensive, Assessments had been systematically reinforced by early war intelligence, consistently indicating that American military communication systems relied predominantly on outdated commercial methods, basic diplomatic codes adapted from civilian applications, and elementary encryption procedures that German cryptographers could easily penetrate and systematically exploit for significant German tactical advantage throughout extended military operations. Detailed reports from experienced German agents operating within American industrial and military establishments had consistently described cryptographic capabilities that appeared to lag decades behind current German technological achievements, creating a comprehensive intelligence picture that seemed to provide definitive validation for Nazi theoretical frameworks about the inherent limitations of democratic societies in achieving sustained scientific and technological excellence under decentralized organizational structures. The actual historical experience that German military leaders systematically confronted proved catastrophically different from every strategic prediction, intelligence assessment, and fundamental assumption upon which they had constructed their comprehensive strategic planning and operational decision-making processes. Rather than encountering the anticipated American cryptographic primitiveness that could be easily exploited for sustained German strategic advantage, Wehrmacht commanders had unknowingly engaged a technologically sophisticated adversary whose systematic code-breaking capabilities far exceeded their own most optimistic projections of American technological potential and scientific capabilities. The Americans had not merely matched German encryption technology through fortunate circumstances, exceptional individual brilliance, or temporary wartime improvements in their scientific capabilities. They had fundamentally surpassed German cryptographic science through innovative applications of mechanical computing power, systematic analytical methodologies, and collaborative organizational approaches that German cryptographers had never envisioned as practical possibilities within their established theoretical frameworks and institutional structures. This comprehensive technological superiority extended far beyond individual brilliance or exceptional resource allocation into systematic organizational advantages that reflected deeper American industrial capabilities, educational systems, and cultural approaches to collaborative scientific research that systematically contradicted fundamental Nazi assumptions about democratic society's inherent limitations in achieving sustained technological excellence. The clicking typewriter keys had systematically become the mechanical soundtrack to American intellectual triumph, each individual keystroke marking another pivotal moment when democratic scientific methods had achieved revolutionary results that substantially exceeded authoritarian alternatives through systematic application of collaborative research principles rather than traditional hierarchical command structures and centralized decision-making processes. The profound psychological transformation systematically experienced by German military leadership proved every bit as historically dramatic and strategically significant as the immediate military consequences of this comprehensive cryptographic catastrophe. Wehrmacht officers who had spent years conducting complex military operations with complete confidence in their communications security suddenly realized they had been systematically waging warfare in absolute transparency, with their every strategic thought, tactical innovation, and operational plan completely visible to enemy analysts who had been methodically cataloging German capabilities, systematically identifying weaknesses, and accurately anticipating German strategic intentions with scientific precision and systematic thoroughness. The psychological shock of this devastating revelation extended far beyond professional embarrassment or tactical disappointment into fundamental questions about German technological supremacy, the intellectual foundations of Nazi ideology, and the broader assumptions about democratic society's capacity for sustained scientific achievement that had systematically shaped German strategic thinking throughout the pre-war period and continuing into the war's most critical phases. Historical evidence comprehensively documenting this cryptographic catastrophe and its profound psychological impact on German military leadership emerged gradually through systematic post-war interrogations of captured German officers and careful analysis of Wehrmacht documents systematically recovered from various military headquarters across occupied Europe. General Wilhelm Keitel, during his extensive testimony before the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg, systematically described the revelation of Allied cryptographic penetration as psychologically more devastating than Germany's comprehensive territorial losses, systematic industrial destruction, or even the complete collapse of German military resistance across multiple theaters of operation. The discovery that American and British codebreakers had been systematically reading German military communications since early 1942 forced a complete reassessment of every major strategic decision made during the war's middle years, creating a retrospective understanding that German commanders had essentially been conducting complex military operations while their opponents possessed complete advanced knowledge of every planned strategic move, a metaphor that systematically captured both the tactical impossibility of their strategic situation and the profound intellectual humiliation of their professional position within the Wehrmacht's command hierarchy. Captured Wehrmacht. Operational documents from the war's final chaotic months provide compelling historical evidence of the deep psychological impact these discoveries systematically had on German military leadership across all levels of command responsibility and strategic planning. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, in personal correspondence discovered after his forced suicide, expressed growing bewilderment at the Allies' seemingly supernatural ability to systematically anticipate German defensive preparations during the Atlantic Wall's construction, describing a mounting sense that German tactical innovations were being systematically countered almost before they could be fully implemented through normal military procedures. The statistical evidence of Allied cryptographic success, systematically compiled through comprehensive post-war analysis of intelligence operations, proved absolutely staggering in its comprehensive scope and devastating operational effectiveness. Detailed examination of preserved archival records revealed that British and American intelligence services had successfully decoded approximately 85% of all German military communications transmitted between February 1942 and Germany's final surrender in May 1945, representing an intelligence penetration of unprecedented historical proportions. This extraordinary intelligence advantage had provided systematic advance warning of virtually every major German offensive operation, comprehensive information about defensive preparations across all active theaters, detailed assessments of German industrial capacity and strategic resource allocation, and unprecedented insight into internal political dynamics within Nazi leadership circles that extended far beyond purely military considerations into broader strategic planning and ideological decision-making processes. The mechanical typewriter keys that had clicked incessantly in Allied intelligence centers throughout these crucial war years represented far more than mere technological superiority or superior resource allocation. They systematically symbolized fundamental philosophical differences in American approaches to scientific research, educational development, and industrial organization that distinguished democratic societies from their authoritarian counterparts through systematic emphasis on collaborative effort rather than hierarchical control. While German cryptographic efforts had systematically concentrated on creating theoretically impenetrable encryption systems through mathematical perfection and mechanical precision, American cryptographic operations had systematically focused on developing practical methodologies for breaking any encryption system through brute force computational approaches, collaborative analytical techniques, and organizational efficiency that emphasized practical results over theoretical elegance, and systematic achievement over individual brilliance. This fundamental philosophical difference reflected broader cultural contrasts between authoritarian perfectionism that demanded predetermined solutions and democratic pragmatism that systematically encouraged experimental approaches, innovative thinking, and adaptive methodologies that could respond effectively to changing circumstances and unexpected challenges. The clicking typewriter keys had systematically become auditory representations of American intellectual abundance, not merely material abundance measured in industrial production or natural resources, but intellectual abundance reflected in the systematic mobilization of thousands of skilled cryptographers, mathematicians, linguists, and technical specialists working collaboratively toward common strategic objectives through decentralized decision-making processes that systematically encouraged individual initiative within coordinated organizational frameworks. The symbolic power of those typewriter keys systematically resonated throughout German command structures, as Wehrmacht officers gradually comprehended the comprehensive scope of their communications compromise and its devastating implications for German strategic planning across all theaters of military operations. Each individual clicking keystroke represented another American tactical advantage, gained through superior organizational methods rather than exceptional individual genius. Another practical demonstration that democratic societies could systematically achieve scientific excellence that substantially surpassed authoritarian alternatives through collaborative research approaches that mobilized diverse intellectual resources more effectively than hierarchical command systems and centralized decision-making processes. As German generals systematically absorbed the complete implications of their cryptographic catastrophe during the war's chaotic closing weeks, they systematically confronted overwhelming evidence that challenged every strategic assumption upon which they had constructed their military planning and every ideological belief that had shaped their fundamental understanding of American society and democratic institutions. The Americans had not merely achieved temporary tactical superiority through lucky circumstances, superior numbers, or overwhelming industrial capacity. They had systematically demonstrated intellectual and organizational superiority in precisely those scientific and technological areas where German confidence had been most absolute and German achievements had been most substantial throughout the pre-war period. The mechanical sound of typewriter keys had systematically become the auditory signature of American technological triumph over German scientific pretensions, each individual click representing another German military secret transformed into Allied strategic advantage through systematic application of democratic scientific methods that emphasized collaborative effort over individual genius and practical results over theoretical perfection. In the bunkers and command posts of Germany's systematically collapsing military establishment, the rhythmic clicking had evolved into something far more historically significant than mechanical sound. It had become the percussion section of democracy's intellectual symphony, the methodical rhythm of American systematic excellence surpassing German theoretical sophistication through sustained, collaborative effort rather than authoritarian command and centralized control. In those final moments of the Third Reich's existence, as German generals contemplated the complete collapse of everything they had systematically believed about technological superiority and scientific excellence, the clicking of typewriter keys represented not merely tactical defeat, but philosophical vindication of democratic society's capacity for sustained scientific achievement through collaborative research methods that systematically mobilize diverse intellectual resources more effectively than hierarchical systems designed to enforce conformity to predetermined patterns and centralized authority structures. The sound had systematically become an eternal reminder that democratic abundance extended far beyond material wealth into intellectual and organizational domains that would fundamentally reshape the modern world's technological landscape and systematically define the parameters of international scientific competition for decades to come, proving conclusively that free societies possessed inherent advantages in systematic scientific research and technological development that authoritarian systems could never successfully replicate through hierarchical organization and centralized control of intellectual resources.